Coming up on the Wheelhouse Retirement Show, for years, you've heard us reference the term required minimum distribution, or RMD. But do you know what it is and how it can affect your retirement? Rishi and the team explain the ins and outs of RMDs and strategies you can use to help potentially avoid higher taxes on these pesky distributions. And later, on this week's Planning Tip of the Week, Rishi is going to be talking to small business owners about Section 1202 and the tax advantages for C corporations and how you can potentially save up to $10 million of capital gains in your small business. That's all today and more. The Wheelhouse Retirement Show starts right now.
Retirement is more than a destination. It's a journey that starts with a dream. A vision for the way you want to live, recharge, and give back. To get there, you need a plan to make your retirement dreams come true. Now, in its fourth season, the Wheelhouse Retirement Show gives you the strategies you need to plan your ideal retirement. From income planning and wealth management to strategies for taxes, healthcare, and leaving a legacy, Rishi Ghosh and the experienced team at Wheelhouse Advisory Group provide one-stop modern solutions for your journey to and through retirement. With 3 locations, it's your go-to solution for all things retirement. This is the Wheelhouse Retirement Show.
Welcome to the Wheelhouse Retirement Show. I'm Amy Sharp. Joining me today, Rishi Ghosh and Anthony Stryker with Wheelhouse Advisory Group. Great to be back with you guys.
Good to be back with you.
Excited to be here.
Well, you know I can't talk about retirement news until we talk about dad news. So how has this been? Almost a year with Sweet Naya.
I am telling you, the time truly flies. So many clients have told me the older you get, the quicker time goes. Honestly, that has been the complete case. Actually, recently we got to celebrate her first Christmas here, and I was telling people around the office how, as I've gotten a little bit older, sometimes, unfortunately, the Christmas spirit dissipated. But I will tell you, ever since I had her, I was quite excited. And believe it or not, I actually helped my wife set up the Christmas stuff around the
whole new
house.
Side of
And
yeah.
she liked the wrapping paper more than the actual presents she got. But I think one of the most exciting times that I had was actually, we went down to the Union Station in St. Louis with Dadu and Tama, Grandma and Grandpa. And for those that have watched the show for years, after my dad retired, his goal was to always spend every winter in India. He said, if I never have to see another snowflake again, I won't be disappointed. Well, as you can tell, they were in St. Louis for December, and we were there.
Things change, don't they?
I'm telling you. We were there, and unfortunately, he had to bust out his winter coat, but there's a great picture of them in front of Union Station, the big Christmas tree we have downtown.
She is a doll, and we are loving watching you be a daddy. This is all great. So we enjoy
so much fun.
all the stories to
We
come.
are at the office too.
I bet you are. I bet you are. Well, as much as we'd love to talk about Sweet Naya for the entire show, and I'm sure you would as well, we do need to get down to business and talk about something that we have actually covered on this show so many times, which is required minimum distributions. Take us through this, Anthony.
And we do mention this a lot, and while our RMDs or required minimum distributions might not nearly be as cute as Miss Naya, they are very, very important when it comes to retirement planning. So an RMD, it refers to the minimum amount that a retiree has to take or withdraw from an account, a retirement account, after they reach a certain age. So they have to take this distribution every year, and this rule applies to various different types of retirement accounts that we'll talk about in a little bit. But you know, it's really the purpose of these is that we've been saving in these pre-tax accounts or tax-deferred accounts, and now we have to spend them. But if we don't spend them, then these accounts still haven't been taxed yet. So the IRS, the government, well, they've got to get that tax money at some point. So at a certain age, we do have to start taking these distributions out of accounts on a yearly basis. And so understanding that RMD can be very important for just managing overall savings effectively, minimizing your tax burden overall, and just planning overall how your retirement and your estate might go.
You mentioned we have to take from certain accounts. Which accounts are you referencing?
That's exactly right. And we've got a nice cohesive list, a couple of them up here on the board as we sit right now. So over on the IRA side, we've got our traditional IRAs, the IRAs that you roll over from one to another. And for those self-employed, we have SEP IRAs and also simple IRAs for smaller businesses. Those all have required minimum distributions at a certain age. And then on the business side or the company side, some employer-sponsored plans. So if you have a 401k, if you have a 403b, or say you work with a government and you have a 457 plan, or even a bigger but small business, a simple 401k, all of these have these required minimum distributions. And you'll notice we don't have the word Roth on there till the very bottom. It's very important to know that our Roth IRAs in retirement, Roth IRAs in general, do not have a required minimum distribution, but all of these accounts that we're looking at do.
Lots to think about on this topic of required minimum distributions. The question always is, when do I have to start taking these RMDs? That seems to change quite often.
Oh yeah, I mean, a lot of our viewers, a lot of our longtime retirees might always remember the rule of 70 and a half years old. Once you get to 70 and a half years old, that is when we have to start the calculation. That's when we have to start taking these pesky little requirements out of these accounts. But over the years, things change, IRS laws change, and in 2019, at the umpteenth hour of 2019, a lot of our viewers remember us talking about Secure Act 1.0, and that actually pushed required minimum distribution age from 70 and a half to 72 years old. And then here within the last year or so, we had another passing of another law, Secure Act 2.0, which actually pushed requirement minimum distribution age from 72 to 73, but it also offered a few different stipulations depending on your birth date. So just to keep it simple, we brought a chart here. If you were born before 1949, 70 and a half is still your magical rule. Between 49 and 50, 1949 and 1950, you are in that age group of 72. From 1951 to 1959, you are pushed back to 73. And for those youngsters, as we joke about, starting and thinking about transitioning into retirement, 1960 and on, we're talking about 75 years old. Now, the timing of the required minimum distribution is very, very important. So you have to, let's just say your start year is 73 years old. When you are 73, you must take your required minimum distribution, your first one, by the time you get to April 1st of the following year, meaning when you turn 73, you have until April 1st of the following year. Now, the stipulation, though, is if you wait till the following year to take that RMD, you then have to take what we call a double RMD, one for age 73 by April 1st and one for age 74 by December 31st. Now, subsequently, after that first RMD, every single withdrawal must be made by December 31st of that calendar year. No more April 1st stipulation. So it's very, very important, as Anthony and I will talk about later on in the show, but to understand when your start date is, understand how to calculate how much you need to take out of the account, but more importantly, take it out at the proper time, because there could be the potential of some penalties and IRS taxes out on that.
Okay, we're off to a great start. Thank you both so much. Important insights. Up next, we continue to discuss the ins and outs of required minimum distributions and how putting together a strategy for your family to deal with this requirement can help minimize taxation on your portfolio for years to come. Plus, coming up later in this week's planning tip of the week, Rishi explains a strategy known as Section 1202 for small business owners looking to save money on taxes. The Wheelhouse Retirement Show continues next. Stay tuned.
You've worked hard to build up your retirement savings, but do you know how much you're paying in fees in your investment accounts? Hidden fees can eat away at your hard-earned dollars, and most investors don't know what they're actually paying in fees. I'm Anthony Stryker, and our team at Wheelhouse Advisory Group can give you a fee analysis so you know exactly where your money is going. Call us to learn how to keep extra costs from eating away at your retirement. Get your complimentary fee analysis today.
Welcome back to the Wheelhouse Retirement Show. Here today with Rishi and Anthony, helping viewers understand a requirement in retirement that many of us are familiar with, and that, of course, is required minimum distributions. Let's hop right back into it. You've both given us a lot of content to process so far, but how does someone calculate their RMDs when it comes right down to it?
So calculating those RMDs, and Rishi called those pesky RMDs, one of the reasons is because some people walk in, they say, how the heck do I know what I have to take out of my account? And so the first thing you have to do is figure out your account balance. And what you want to do is look at your account balance on your year-end statement of last year. So whatever your balance on that account was on 12/31 of the prior year. So if I'm sitting here in 2024, I'm looking at 12/31, 2023, and so on there. And so you need to find that account balance for each IRA or other accounts that have required minimum distribution. And the second piece you need for this equation is your life expectancy factor. What the heck is that? Most people say to us. So what you do is this can be found on an IRS publication 590B, and I just say that's a Google away for our clients, or we figure it out for them. And so it shows you what factor you're going to use. You use the uniform lifetime table, or if your spouse is 10 years or more younger than you would use the joint life expectancy table to find that number. So you have your account balance, you have your life expectancy factor, and to calculate the RMD and find out that distribution, you just take that account balance and divide it by that life expectancy factor. So I did bring an example here today of a potential retiree who has reached RMD age, and they've got $1 million account on December 31st of the prior year. So they went to Google, looked up 590B from the IRS, and saw that on the uniform lifetime expectancy table that their life expectancy factor is 26.5. So they'll take $1 million divided by 26.5, and they'll get a little bit under $38,000 as a result in the calculator there. And so that's $38,000 that has to come out of that account by December 31st. It stacks on top of any other income, Social Securities, pensions, any other IRA distributions you've taken. And so it's very important that it could knock you into the next tax bracket or affect your Medicare premiums, how much you pay for those. So it's important to know that number, of course.
Wow, that's great insight. What if a person has multiple IRAs? What changes then?
That's very normal for people that come through our doors. They come to Wheelhouse because we help them transition from what we call the accumulation phase of life into the retirement distribution planning phase of life. And oftentimes, right, we know the term, don't put all your eggs in one basket. So we see people oftentimes with 6, 8, 10, 12. Anthony and I have done this I've done this going over a decade now. I've seen people with 25, 26 different accounts, right? And obviously, to answer your question, every single account has a required minimum distribution if it is one of those tax-deferred accounts that Anthony had mentioned in the previous segment. And you have to calculate from each account, based on the December 31st value, how much you need to take out of those accounts. Now, the one thing that does work in people's favor is you do not have to take it out individually from each account, meaning if the number is I need to take out $100,000 out of these accounts, you can take $100,000 out of one IRA or one 401k. It doesn't have to be individualized per account. But we personally believe right before retirement or right after retirement is a phenomenal time to consolidate some of these assets because there is still a way in this world to be diversified and simplified, and that also helps with your RMD as well.
Okay, what happens if I hit that magic age and I don't take my RMD?
Absolutely. And so if we do hit that magic age, first of all, plan A is don't let that happen. Plan B is, there is a bit of a hefty penalty for that, but it's come down over the years. So for quite a while, for some time, it was a 50% penalty, meaning if I had a $10,000 RMD and I didn't take any of it, I owe $5,000 in a tax penalty. So with the second edition of the Secure Act 2.0 in 2023, that was lowered down to 25%, still a very hefty penalty that you want to avoid. And then also, if you fix that RMD issue in a timely manner and refile, and after you take the RMD, it can be lowered down to 10 in some situations. So plan A, we don't want to let that happen. That's why Wheelhouse's staff works to make sure we know them on all of our accounts and get them taken out and plan for that. Number two is there is a penalty, but you want to figure out that, so you pay the lower penalty there.
Absolutely, and I think I'm aware that at Wheelhouse you're not a big fan of RMDs to begin with, so you're always trying to get your clients to reduce them. Why is that?
There's nothing wrong with a required minimum distribution. If you need the money and you were forced to take the money, spend the money, enjoy the money, it's your hard-earned savings. But for us here at our practice, we're just full believers when the government generally forces you to do something, especially when it comes to your money and your finances, it's not always in your best interest. And there's a multitude of different reasons of why having an RMD can be a potential drawback to your retirement portfolio. The first and foremost, Anthony mentioned this a second ago, increased tax burden. I can't tell you how many people come through our office and they say, Rishi, I don't even need my RMD, but I'm being forced to take this $25,000, $35,000, $55,000, $85,000. And that actually moves into my second bullet point. A lot of people then are forced into higher Medicare premiums. And now we don't have to get into the nuances of Medicare premiums, but we're talking about an IRMA tax or an escalated tax on your basic Medicare premiums. And that is, as we call it, a cliff. If you go over even a penny over these IRMA thresholds, you are now paying that higher Medicare premium. The bigger thing that you also lose that a lot of people don't account for when they don't need their required minimum distribution is that loss of tax-deferred growth. Oftentimes, our clients will tell us, well, I don't really need the $50,000, so reinvest it in my trust account or my family joint account. Well, you're still getting growth, but every penny we grow from that point forward has capital gains associated, short-term or long-term. You know, in addition to that, right, impact on estate planning, right? Prior to Secure Act, my dad's estate plan, as I've talked about many times, was he was going to spend whatever they needed to keep him and my mom from becoming a burden on us. After that, my sister and I could deal with the tax consequences, but him and I are firm believers that tax rates are going to be higher in the future, so we wanted to make sure that we planned before tax rates go up. We are talking about complexities and penalties, right? I can't tell you how many people have walked through my office where they've never taken an RMD before, and they're 73, 74 years old. I mean, we are talking about walloping penalties, and whether it's 10%, 25%, or 50%, I don't want to give a penny extra to Uncle Sam than we need to.
Great information from both of you. Thank you so much. A lot of information for you, the viewer, to take in. Coming up after the break, Rishi will walk us through a strategy for small business owners to save money on taxes. That's next in our planning tip of the week.
Have you thought about your plan for long-term care? Do you need a policy to pay for it, or can you self-insure? If you have questions about long-term care planning and all the options available to you, you're not alone. I'm Lauren Ferraro, and my team at Wheelhouse Advisory Group can help you create a plan to meet your personal needs and protect your hard-earned assets. If you are confused or concerned about planning for long-term care, call us today to learn how to steer your future in the right direction.
Hi, I'm Rishi Ghosh with the Planning Tip of the Week. On this Advisor Tip of the Week, we are talking to all of you hardworking small business owners, the entrepreneurs who took the ultimate leap of faith to chase the American dream and start your own business. Section 1202, also known as the Small Business Stock Gains Exclusion, presents an opportunity for business owners. Imagine the possibility of not paying tax on up to $10 million of capital gains. Sounds impressive, right? But it's not a simple walk in the park. Qualifying for this can be quite a major challenge. The eligibility criteria is strict and complex, but for C corporations that navigate this maze successfully, the tax savings can be substantial. Let's consider who might be on the path to these savings. We're looking at a range of innovators and trailblazers, all operating as C corporations. Think of technology startups disrupting the scene with fresh software, hardware, or unique tech services. Envision small-scale manufacturing companies that are reshaping industries with innovative products and processes. Picture biotechnology firms at the forefront of medical or scientific research, retail or wholesale businesses carving out niche markets, and agricultural enterprises revolutionizing farming with agritech. These are the types of businesses that might just be able to leverage Section 1202 to their advantage. Let's dive into the primary eligibility rules for tapping into the benefits of Section 1202. First up, your business needs to be a domestic C corporation. This is a non-negotiable. Now, regarding gross assets, there's a ceiling here. You can't go over $50 million, not just before, but also immediately after issuing the stock. It's a fine balance to maintain. Next, we have to have the active business requirement. At least 80% of your assets should be actively used in running a qualified trade or business. It's all about demonstrating that these assets are not just sitting idle, but are integral to your business operation. Now, patience is the key with the holding period rule. You need to hold onto the stock for a minimum of 5 years. It's a long game, but one that could pay off significantly. For many of our small business owners, 5 years is a blip in time compared to the lifetime they spent building their businesses. But it's an important rule to remember. Lastly, an important part, the exclusion amounts. This is where you can get excited. You can exclude up to 100% of the capital gains from taxes capped at $10 million or 10 times the adjusted basis of the stock, whichever is greater. This rule can be a potential game changer for your financial strategy. Steering you through the maze of Section 1202 can lead to a significant tax savings for those who qualify. But let's be clear, what we've covered here is just the tip of the iceberg. The small business stock gains exclusion is layered with detailed rules and requirements. Every business is unique, and this is where a seasoned tax attorney becomes not only invaluable, but necessary. Let's talk strategy, specifically a savvy move known as the stacking technique that can potentially amplify the tax benefits of Section 1202. Picture this, a tech startup founder on the brink of an IPO with the anticipation that their shares are going to skyrocket. They decide to play a smart game by using the stacking technique to ramp up their tax advantages. Here's how it might play out. Step 1. Before the IPO, the founder spreads the wealth by gifting shares to 3 fortunate recipients, maybe family, friends, or key team members. Step 2. The IPO happens and the share values soar just as predicted. Now, the tax advantages with Section 1202. When the founder eventually sells, their shares can potentially wave goodbye to taxes on up to $10 million of those capital gains. But it doesn't stop there. Each person who receives shares can also exclude up to $10 million of capital gains if they sell. We're talking about potentially several chances for large amounts of tax-free gains. It's about strategically positioning not just yourself, but also others to benefit from this powerful tax exclusion. Of course, I've probably made this sound a bit more straightforward than it truly is in practice. The reality is the nitty-gritty of 1202 and the stacking techniques are quite complex. So I can't stress enough the importance of getting a seasoned tax attorney and financial professional on your team. We can help you connect with the professionals who can offer the personalized, knowledgeable advice who may need to figure out if this is an appropriate path for your particular situation. That's this planning tip of the week. The Wheelhouse Retirement Show continues next.
Did you know taxes could be your biggest expense in retirement? No one can avoid taxes completely, but with the right strategies in place, you could potentially reduce your tax bill in retirement. Having a plan to help protect your retirement savings from higher taxes could be more money in your pocket and less to the IRS. At Wheelhouse Advisory Group, helping people like you minimize your taxes in retirement is something we are truly passionate about. Call us today to learn about ways to possibly lower your taxes in the future.
Welcome back to the Wheelhouse Retirement Show. We're back with Rishi Ghosh and joined now by Andrew Briesacker. And it's great to be back with you. We are continuing our conversation about RMDs, but Rishi, if you'll excuse me, I have to ask Andrew about your recent trip with your wife, Kelly, and the girls.
Yeah.
Tell us more.
Absolutely. So we did get to go to Maui. So my wife, Kelly, and my daughters, Winnie and Zoe, we had a fantastic time. We got to drive down the road to Hana, which is one of the most beautiful strips of land, but definitely not for the motion sickness folks out there, because it puts some of the country roads from Waterloo, Illinois, where I'm from, to shame. But it was a beautiful trip. It was before we actually stayed just north of Lahaina, where the wildfires were, so it was just before that. So we had a wonderful trip and met some great people, but we're definitely hoping and praying for all the people of Lahaina that they recover quickly.
Yeah, I have been to Maui as well, and it is beautiful. And yes, indeed, always keeping those people in our thoughts and prayers. Back to our conversation about required minimum distributions. Yeah. We were discussing some of the drawbacks.
Sure.
What are the options, though, if I do need those required minimum distributions?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think there's a few different ways that many times we work with retirees that need their RMDs in a few different situations. I would say one time that maybe RMDs are actually beneficial is we do work with a lot of really good savers that then aren't as good at spending their money in retirement. So sometimes the RMD actually pushes them to spend some of that money. So they use that for maybe one-off trips to take the family on, maybe take them to Maui once things obviously clean up there, those regards, or do things around the house that they've been putting off, or maybe get a new vehicle if they've needed that. I'd say one of the other situations is people maybe need the money, but they don't necessarily need it right now, right? So they can go and reinvest that into a taxable account. So the good news is that now that principal has had the taxes paid on it, but then any investments they make, they're going to have to pay taxes on the dividends or the interest or the capital gains that may come from that. So I would say the last option would be, speaking of taxes, is many times clients will use that RMD to pay the taxes on things like Rishi talked about earlier, Roth conversions, right? They can do their Roth conversion because they can't use that RMD for a Roth conversion, but they can use it to pay the taxes. They may also have pensions or other types of income that they under withhold on, and then they use that RMD to pay the taxes on that as well.
Rishi, you touched on this earlier in the show. If someone does not need the funds from their required minimum distributions, what then?
You know, a lot of people, Amy, know this unsaid law of declining consumption, especially when it comes to retirement. As we get a little bit older and kind of exit the go-go years of retirement into the slower go years of retirement, oftentimes a lot of our clients don't need those required minimum distributions. So some options, because we have to take those funds, otherwise face a steep penalty, as Anthony had mentioned earlier in today's show. You could make a qualified charitable donation for so many of our philanthropic clients, whether it's their churches, religious organizations, whether it's the St. Louis Zoo, wherever, right? You could utilize some of these funds to make that philanthropic donation and get yourself an immediate tax benefit. Another one that I know has gotten really popular recently is a lot of our clients would rather see their money enjoyed while they're alive rather than passing on, let's say, $1 million or $2 million. So they often utilize that money to gift to loved ones or family members, or even gift into a 529 plan for future educations for grandchildren or nieces and nephews. And then we also know people that want to amplify their estate. So they might use those necessary withdrawals and fund a life insurance policy. So you're taking small amounts of money of whatever your withdrawal is, buying yourself an insurance policy so that upon your passing, it then amplifies your estate. So there are a few different options out there, but obviously we like to try to lower those required minimum distributions before you get to that pesky age.
Okay, we're running short on time, but planning is really key when it comes to your options for not having to take the RMD.
Exactly. Try to control the controllable as much as you can. You know, try to get money into Roths like we've talked about beforehand, because Roth IRAs, they don't have those required distributions. And then you can leave that money to loved ones if you don't need it. You can leave it to them tax-free, and that'll continue to grow for them tax-free for 10 years after that. And so obviously that can be planning on the forefront, can really help you avoid those pesky RMDs or keep them a lot less going forward.
Okay.
For us here, you know, Roths are our unsaid favorite account. You know, we talk about it all the time, right? We jokingly say maybe this firm should be called Roth Wheelhouse Retirement Group, but
it's got a ring to it.
I tell you what, but I think my marketing team might get mad at me if I have to rebrand this entire company. But the point is this, right? You know, everyone's got a different situation. Everyone's got a different taxable situation. But at the end of the day, it is so crucial between retirement and required minimum distribution age to make sure you have a strategic tax plan, make sure you have a strategic income plan. And for those that are watching that are at RMD age, there are options as well on top of your RMD to do planning to not only preserve money for you, but preserve money for generations to come.
Guys, thank you so much. Great information. And thank you for joining us today. If you need help identifying your RMD plan and taking advantage of some tax-efficient strategies for your family, don't delay. Reach out by phone or on the web to get started planning for your ideal retirement future. For Rishi, Anthony, Andrew, and the team at Wheelhouse Advisory Group, I'm Amy Sharp. Have a great week, everyone. We'll see you next time.